Makuta in my universe is a colonial structure of semi-mechanical single-celled organisms working in symbiosis. Their thinking, motor skills and abilities characteristic to Makutas are inherent in each cell and grow with the amount of biomechanical matter. There are tissues in them, but their boundaries are blurred because cells adapted to different tasks do not have specific groups, and their phenotypes smoothly transition from one properties to others. Their main difference from all creatures of the Matoran universe is the aging mechanism. Over time, the radiation from the reactor of the first component became toxic to them. This didn't give them the opportunity to continue their activities, and they actually died of hunger. With the help of subatomic technology available to the original being, the Makuta have most of the abilities of their G1 version, with adaptation to suit my story. Let's talk about its history. Makuta originated as a single Matoran colony. It was awakened 100 years before the Toa, Matoran, and all other creatures of the Matoran universe emerged from their canisters. This colony covered with its network all the ecosystems of Bara Magna. In terms of their substance, they were initially similar to slime mold. Their task was to settle in the ecosystems of the planet and create rachis, which could immediately be able to support the life of the entire ecosystem, because the living creatures of the Matoran universe do not have the ability to reproduce, and accordingly, they are capable of adaptation only within the limits of their phenotypes, that is, the resulting body, and even plants can only multiply their population asexually. Rachi are created from capsules, canisters with substance of nanorobots, capable of permanently taking the form of a biomechanical animal, not without the help of external force. Therefore, the power of mask control extends to the entire colony, that is, to program the mind, transform raw materials into any matter that may exist, and vice versa, destroy matter. In general, the structure of Makuta cells is capable of a huge range of tasks. Now I will leave the description of abilities to the most important ones. The first would be to create pocket dimensions in which they store their mass. Even small parts of the general colony are capable of this, which will ultimately play a role when only gaseous spirits remain of its great mass. Makuta can also inhabit bodies without a mind or a connection to a common power source, first component energy, popularly called the inner light. The listed abilities apply to corpses of creatures, which often become the bodies of Makuta. They are also capable of transforming a controlled body using mask of control, as well as connecting several bodies together, which is called the shadow hand. The difference from the general ecosystem of the universe make it clear that the Makuta are intended for temporary existence, and the proof is the first misfortune on the way of this colony. After 50 years of painstaking work from perceiving ecosystems and wasting its powers, Makuta became less and less stable and less viscous as aging affected the body. The cells began to die, and the competition appeared between them. It turned out that radiation from the sun and the mask of control also have a detrimental effect on the structure of the body. The cells of adjacent consciousness, which consisted in the agreement of the order of things, died first. Resistant groups also appeared to those who wanted to kill in order to acquire a mobile and hermetically sealed shelter. However, it was enough for others to simply wait so that they too would die out. Various adjacent coalitions separated and died out. In the end, it turns out that those aggressive and cruel Makutas that we know remained as a result of natural selection. Some were more aggressive towards their cohabitants, while others would like to find a common language with the not yet awakened members of the Matoran universe, but circumstances dictated other conditions. Thus, two colonies were created, a large one that called itself Miserix and a small one that called itself Teridax. The bigger colony had the mask of control, because they, due to their sheer advantage in mental dimensions, could use it more effectively. However, Teridax was not going to remain idle. He had a plan, which did not include possessing a mask of control at first. Teridax made plans for the mask of creation that also damaged Makutas. His idea was to construct a body from parts that could both limit it from the effects of the legendary mask and unleash its full potential. At this moment, the Makuta would be impossible to overcome, having both legendary masks on Bara Magna. And having innate intelligence, they could rule this world and therefore ensure their safety. But even Teridax had no intention of turning the inhabitants of this world into slaves, no matter how much Icarus insisted. And now we have come to the moment of awakening of the Matoran universe. The Toa turns out to be the best vessel to contain the mask of control. However, it is suspected that even the Toa's body will not be enough to contain their power, and the mask will simply overload the body. In any case, it was necessary to obtain samples of the Toa's body in order to determine whose body was better suited to limit radiation from Makuta. The first to come to the fore were Kopaka, capable of maintaining the balance of the body in extremely low temperature, and Tahu, capable of not only heat resistance, but also immunity from radiation. Therefore, plans were being prepared to awaken and then dismantle both Toa. Not everyone agreed with this. Some insisted on creating a body while preserving the life of the Toa. In the end, it was left to chance. While the Matoran were developing the surrounding area and the Toa were hunting for masks, the Makuta moved to the island of Voyanui. The first years Makuta tried to create bodies for themselves from dead Rahi. Sometimes Rahi were killed, sometimes they died by accident. Sometimes Rahi possessed by Makutas attacked Matoran settlements and took away resources, or the Matoran themselves. Even Teridax was against such actions at first. However, everything turned upside down when the first army of Icarax gathered and attacked the settlement in the mountains of Kokora. They used lava beasts, which were capable of heating up parts of their body and firing thermal projectiles, be it lava, plasma or fire. It was very simpler than to make cooling mechanisms for Tahu. That day was the first time Novel Blast was used. Kopaka realized that there was no point in waiting until the entire village was destroyed. All that remained was to freeze everything around to a temperature that the cold Matorans were able to withstand. Kopaka destroyed the army in moments, but he did not know that a second detachment was on the way. His strength was increasingly leaving him, and although he could cope with all the Makuta Icarax himself was brought up in the rear of the squad. The last battle was especially difficult. Kopaka took every advantage, transforming existing ice blocks, and in the end even sent Icarax down the mountainside with himself. However, Icarax took the last blow and pierced through with an ice spike, tore off Kopaka's limbs. For the Matoran, it seemed strange why he left the legs and arm for himself, but in fact this was what he was hunting for. The Toa are not going to stand by, and seeing his brother's condition, Tahu was the first to strike back. He ends up on Voyanui with the help of Golden Mirror. Liva shared the ability to levitate with Tahu. The Makuta were waiting for Tahu to arrive, but he was not interested in fighting with them individually. Directing his gaze to the mountain, he took the blow of Makuta Mirava, which cut off his arm. However, he barely cared. So, in the night of that day, the second Nova Blast occurred. Tahu destroyed the gigantic Mount Valmai, in which almost all the Makuta were settled, burning it to nothing. It is fortunate that the beam of Quark-Gluon plasma reached the main planet, Bara Magna, with its radiation. A few minutes later, Tahu, waiting for it to cool down and stop emitting radiation, watched as the mountain gradually began to restore with blue sparks, exactly those that the Mask of Creation emits. But what's even more amazing is that an entire section of Bara Magna began to shine brightly with this light. Tahu was confused. Is it Makuta? Does the planet return the mountain particles launched into it? There must be inhabitants similar in strength to the Matoran or Toa. About this in episode 4 of BIOVERSE.